everybody. This is Troy over at the Uncomfortable Truths. Thanks for checking me out here today. So, we have some pretty interesting news, and that is that Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks has just thrown his hat in for the Democratic primary nomination. And I'm, for one, pretty excited to see how this actually turns out because I don't think we've ever had anybody running who actually also was in charge of a news network, or at least, formally. We have usually that's all done behind the scenes, and maybe you have CNN, MSNBC, or Fox, pushing their prospective candidates onto the American people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we've never had a candidate that actually ran a news network, let alone one that ran a news network that has a huge presence online and is also on regular television sometimes, which really shocked me. My father-in-law is a professional hunting guide and super conservative guy, and he actually knew who the Young Turks were, and I saw him watching them. So their audience is pretty widespread, wider, I think, even than I realized. Uh, to be completely honest, I used to watch the Young Turks quite a bit. In 2016, they had a bit of a meltdown and freak out over Trump and started calling everybody, racist and sexist and all the ists. And I kind of started distancing myself from them after that. But I've actually heard a lot of, good stuff lately. As far as Anna Kasparian, there's been kind of maybe a review and look at what some previous held beliefs and maybe shifting of positions, which I actually think is a fantastic thing to see happen. While they may not necessarily be my favorite group of people, I think it's super important that we allow people to actually change their positions and grow with time. For most of us, if we compare ourselves to how we were about 10 years ago, it's not really going to have that much bearing to who we are today necessarily. And I know Cenk Uygur did run for Congress. He had an unsuccessful bid, and a lot of really unfortunate stuff from his past was brought up. And I think they're going to try to do that again, probably in the presidential race, especially outlets that are really throwing their hat in with Joe Biden. And I do want to urge people, even if you don't like the Young Turks and you don't like Cenk Uygur, which I would consider myself in that camp, I do think it's really important that we keep in mind that holding something that people did against them like decades ago, things that they might have said in text messages when they were in college, high school, is really not fair or productive. Because I think anybody that's not, living in some sort of hole and not talking to anybody, we've all said and done things we're going to regret. So I would urge people to maybe not focus on some of the past things he said that aren't going to go well in a Democratic primary with the audience, and kind of look at what he's accomplished in his own personal life and career, which, regardless of what you think of him, I mean, he does run a pretty widespread news network. So I think it's fair to say that he can definitely point to some accomplishments without, lying or exaggerating in any way. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see what it can do for somebody to be in the race that actually already has a platform, already has people involved in politics. And I honestly don't think he's going to get super far in the Democratic primary. I would be shocked if he, were to actually overcome Biden. But that being said, Biden's an old man, and I don't know what kind of health he's in. Just from looking at him, he doesn't appear to be the healthiest man in the world. So even if Cenk Uygur starts to come in second, now that RFK's dropped out of the race, it's pretty much just Marianne Williamson, who isn't polling super well, uh, Joe Biden, who's almost certainly going to win, and Cenk Uygur. Well, there's a good chance that, I mean, something happens to Joe Biden just due to his age and health. Then they're kind of left with whoever's in second. Maybe if nobody else in the race, that's the person. And that could be an interesting place to be in. I mean, there's certainly worse ways of, getting into the presidency than something like that happening. I mean, these are the risks that happen when, people run when they're in their 80s. So I'm super interested to see what happens with that. I'm also interested to see what the independent news networks say about this and kind of what route they take. Are they going to go soft on him? Or are they going to go easy on him? And I honestly don't know. I know there's going to be a lot of people such as, Jimmy Dore, I'm assuming, is going to come out super aggressive, as he always does, the aggressive progressive. And I think that that's going to be really an important voice in showing critiques. But also, I do think there is going to be some support because the progressive people that are online, at least, they know Cenk Uygur. They've worked with him before. He's had, at least attempts to change things, whether it be like with Wolf-Pac or the various organizations that he started, Justice Democrats. And I will admit, from my own perspective, I think the Justice Democrats have been not only a huge failure, I think they've been a detriment to people that wanted to see progressive policies actually enacted. I think it turned off a lot of people that might otherwise be supportive of these policies. Additionally, I don't think Wolf-Pac was very successful. And the same thing with his congressional run. He did not win that race. But while there have been failures, the guy keeps showing up. So I mean, eventually you're bound to win something. Um, I think that I would probably prefer Cenk Uygur to Biden slightly, though. Admittedly, he's still not my preferred candidate in the race, but I am super excited to see what he has to say. I was kind of digging around. I didn't see a whole lot of a platform built out. That being said, I do think that we can largely guess what the platform is going to be. It's going to be just kind of a little bit left of MSNBC and CNN. Rhetorically, he's going to be maybe a lot further left. But I think when it comes down to the policies, if Cenk Uygur were to get in, it would probably be very similar to an establishment Democrat, perspective, with maybe a little bit more aggressive rhetoric, which I think that part would be a great thing. And let's keep in mind, while I'm trying not to, bash him too much, I'm trying to be fair and objective. He has had lots of people that he doesn't agree with, even on his own network. I think Jimmy Dore, when he was there with the aggressive progressives, went on for, like a year where they were disagreeing about a lot of things like Russiagate, which, to be completely honest, that is the point that really sticks with me, that makes it to where I just don't have it in me to vote for Cenk Uygur. I don't think, because they refused to give up the Russia narrative that Trump was a Russian puppet. They parroted that really for years, for the whole Trump presidency, and they would not let it go. No matter what the evidence came through, no matter how many times he wasn't charged with things, the conspiracy theory just kept building and building. And the community where I'm from was largely an oil and gas community. And that did a lot of damage to those of us that actually supported some left-leaning ideas, but lived in conservative areas, had conservative neighbors. And they just kept saying these things that were clearly not true and demonstrably and verifiably false by their own metrics. Like, there was the Mueller time, the Mueller report, and that comes to nothing. And then all this stuff just kept coming to nothing, and nothing happened. And then they just kept holding to it and shitting on Trump supporters. And I mean, that is really harmful for those of us that were trying to have a conversation, actually change my neighbors' minds about certain issues that maybe I didn't agree with them on. And honestly, that was one of the times I really started moving further and further to the right. Yes, I did just drop tons of coffee on myself, in case anybody was wondering. But that's one of the things that really started me on my political, I guess, interest, was the Young Turks. And they're also the people that, while I started off extremely left wing, as time kind of moved on, and I watched them more and more, I saw that I thought they were wrong about this, I thought they were wrong about that. And then at this point, I think they're, largely incorrect. And I tend to be a little bit more right wing on most issues. But that still shows that even for somebody like me, who was in, a smaller community that was largely right wing, they were still able to, get to me and at least argue their case. And I think that's nothing but positive. And I think that there's a good chance that people in the Democratic primary will be surprised by what Cenk Uygur has to say. And I welcome him as a fantastic addition to the race. I hope he gets at least a lot of coverage so that people can decide what they think of him. And it's not just, a cynical ploy to get him out of the debates that are almost certainly not going to happen. But I hope that he does get media coverage. That way the American people can decide for themselves whether or not they agree with the platform. And anyway, everybody, I would love to hear in the comments what you guys think about Cenk Uygur joining the race. I'll keep on top of this and bring up news as I hear more about it. I'm looking forward to seeing his platform and hearing more about that, and I'll bring it to you as we come. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe. I appreciate the heck out of everybody. And I'll talk to you guys a little bit later. Thanks.